lecture, we will study about the anatomy of the thyroid gland. Thyroid gland is the largest endocrine gland in the body and is the only endocrine gland located superficially. Thyroid gland, by secreting the thyroid hormones, regulate the metabolism in the body and also secretes calcitonin, regulating the calcium levels in the body. The thyroid gland is important clinically as involved in a common disease, that is the goiter. Also, excessive secretions of the thyroid hormones can lead on to hyperthyroidism or Graves' disease, while the decreased secretions can lead on to hypothyroidism known as myxedema in adults and cretinism in children. And in some of these conditions, we may need to do the surgeries on the thyroid gland like thyroidectomy, that is the removal of the thyroid gland. While doing these surgeries, one must be clearly aware about the relations of the thyroid gland to the neighboring structures. So in this lecture, we will study about the anatomy of the thyroid gland and we will try to correlate them clinically. We will study the thyroid gland under following headings: its location, capsule surrounding the gland, gross anatomy of the gland along with its blood supply, nerve supply, lymphatic drainage, lastly its applied anatomy and congenital anomalies associated with the gland. First is the location of the gland. Thyroid gland is an H-shaped gland located anteriorly in the neck. It has two lateral lobes. Each lateral lobe will extend from the superiorly from the thyroid cartilage, and base of the lateral lobe will reach up to the fifth tracheal ring. The two lateral lobes, they are joined by an isthmus placed anterior to the second, third and fourth tracheal ring. And if we consider the vertebral levels, the thyroid gland, it will extend from the fifth cervical vertebra to the first thoracic vertebra. So location of the gland can be described as from above to the thyroid cartilage, base to the fifth tracheal ring, placed on either side of the larynx and trachea, and an isthmus placed in anterior to the tracheal rings. There are two layers of capsules which are surrounding the gland. The inner layer of capsule is the true capsule, while outer layer is the false or surgical capsule. The inner layer is true capsule, true in the sense that it is derived from the gland itself. So it is the peripheral condensation of the gland which will result in formation of true capsule. And if we see in this second diagram, deep to the true capsule, there is dense venous plexus. Relation of true capsule to the venous plexus is important during surgeries, as we should always remove the gland along with the true capsule, as trying to separate the true capsule from the gland can result in damage to the venous plexus. So during thyroidectomy, remove the gland along with true capsule. The outer layer of capsule is the false or surgical capsule, as it is derived from the thickening or condensation of the deep cervical fascia, and it is derived from the pretracheal layer of the deep cervical fascia. This pretracheal layer will surround the gland as false capsule, and it will be also thickened medially as suspensory ligament of Berry. This suspensory ligament will attach the thyroid gland to the cricoid cartilage. And if we trace this layer of pretracheal fascia superiorly, it will be attached to the hyoid bone. As both the structures, hyoid bone and the cricoid cartilage, they move during the deglutition or swallowing, they also carry the thyroid gland along with them during this act of swallowing or deglutition. So this mobility of the thyroid gland during deglutition become important clinically to differentiate the swellings of the thyroid gland from other swellings in the neck. That is, if a patient presents with an anterior swelling in the neck, and we will ask the patient to swallow, and if we observe that the swelling is moving along with deglutition, that is definitely be that of the thyroid gland. So two layers of the capsules around the gland, inner true capsule and relation of the true capsule to the venous plexus, important clinically, outer layer of pretracheal layer, that is the false capsule, and this allows the mobility of the gland. Now the gross relations of the gland. Each lateral lobe of the gland will have an apex reaching up to mid of the thyroid cartilage and a base. It will have three surfaces: a lateral or the superficial surface towards the skin, and a medial surface related to the larynx and the trachea. The lateral and the medial surfaces, they are separated by an anterior border. The third surface is the posterolateral surface, which can be seen in this cut section second diagram. The posterolateral surface will be related to the carotid sheath, and this posterolateral surface will be separated from the medial surface by a posterior border. So each lateral lobe of the gland will have three surfaces and two borders, the lateral, medial and posterolateral surface, and an anterior border and posterior border. While the isthmus of the gland will have an anterior surface related to skin and underlying structures and posterior surface related to the tracheal links. Isthmus will have an upper border and a lower border. In the next diagram, we will study the relations of the surfaces and the borders, apex and base of the gland. First, the apex of the gland. The apex of each lobe of the thyroid gland will reach superiorly up to the oblique line of the thyroid cartilage. To this oblique line, three muscles are attached: thyroid muscle and sternothyroid muscle, the two strap muscles of the neck, and third is the inferior constrictor muscle of the pharynx. And if we see in the second diagram, the apex of the gland is actually placed between the two muscles, that is the sternothyroid and inferior constrictor muscle. And this relation of the apex to the two muscles, it never allows the upward extension of the gland during the enlargements of the gland. Now the base of the gland. The base of the gland will reach up to fourth or fifth tracheal ring. And if we see in the third diagram, both the apex and the base, they are related to the important blood vessels which are supplying the gland itself. The apex is related to the superior thyroid branch of the external carotid artery, while base is related to the inferior thyroid branch of the subclavian artery, and close to the base there is also a branch of the vagus nerve, that is the recurrent laryngeal branch of the vagus nerve, closely related to inferior thyroid artery. So that is about the apex and base of the gland, both related to the important blood vessels of the thyroid gland itself. Now the relations of the surfaces of the gland. The gland has three surfaces which can be seen in this cut section: a lateral or superficial surface related to the skin and the underlying structures, a medial surface which is towards the trachea, and third is the posterolateral surface towards the carotid sheath. Now we will study the relations of these surfaces one by one. First, the lateral surface. The lateral or superficial surface, it is related to the skin, superficial fascia and platysma muscle in the fascia. Deep to the superficial fascia, there is investing layer of deep cervical fascia, and deep to this strap muscles of the neck, they are present, which can be seen clearly in the second diagram. These muscles are superior belly of omohyoid, sternohyoid and sternothyroid muscles. So these muscles, they will overlap the lateral or superficial surface of the thyroid gland. Medial surface can be seen again in the cut section. It is related to the trachea and the esophagus and muscles attached to both the structures. And in between the trachea and esophagus, the recurrent laryngeal branch of the vagus nerve runs in the groove between the two. The third surface is the posterolateral surface, which is related to the important blood vessels of the neck which are placed in the carotid sheath. So it is related to the carotid sheath with common carotid artery and internal jugular vein, and also anterior to the carotid sheath there is ansa cervicalis. So these are the relations of the each lateral lobe of the gland, having three surfaces: the lateral or superficial surface, a medial surface and a posterolateral surface. And these surfaces, they are separated by an anterior border and posterior border. The anterior border is placed between the lateral and the medial surface, and it is related to the same blood vessels as the apex of the gland. So in the first diagram, we can see that the superior thyroid artery, as it reaches to the apex of the gland, it will divide into an anterior and posterior branch. The anterior branch will run along the anterior border of the gland, while the relations of the posterior border can be seen on the second diagram. The posterior border, it is related to the same structures as the base of the gland, that is the branches of inferior thyroid artery. As it reaches near the base of the gland, it will give up its branches which will anastomose with that of posterior branches of superior thyroid artery along the posterior border, and the artery will be closely related here to the recurrent laryngeal branch of the vagus nerve. So posterior border will also be related to an important gland, that is the right and left parathyroid gland. So these are the relations on the anterior and posterior border. Anterior border related to the superior thyroid artery branches, and posterior border related to the branches and anastomosis formed by the inferior thyroid artery, recurrent laryngeal branch of vagus nerve, and parathyroid glands. Now the relations of the isthmus. Isthmus is having an anterior and posterior surface. Anterior surface will be related to same structures as the superficial surface of the lobe of the gland. So it will be related to skin, superficial fascia, deep fascia, and the strap muscles, sternohyoid and sternothyroid. While the posterior surface will be related to the second, third, and fourth tracheal ring. Isthmus is having an upper border and a lower border. Both are related to the important blood vessels. The upper border of isthmus is related to an anastomosis between the branches of the superior thyroid artery, while the lower border, it is related to a plexus formed by the inferior thyroid veins. These relations of the isthmus must be clearly remembered while doing tracheostomy, that is creating an opening in the trachea, when we have to retract the isthmus and then create an opening in the trachea. So these are the gross relations of the lobes of the thyroid gland and isthmus of the gland. The lobes having three surfaces: lateral, medial, and posterolateral, and isthmus having an anterior and posterior surface. Now the third lobe which may sometime be present in the thyroid gland is the pyramidal lobe. This lobe will be attached either to the isthmus of the gland, or it can be attached either to the right or left lateral lobe. This pyramidal lobe is actually an embryological remnant of thyroglossal duct, and pyramidal lobe may be attached to the hyoid bone by a fibromuscular band, that is the levator glanduli thyroidi. Now we will study the blood supply of the thyroid gland. First, the arterial supply. The thyroid gland is a very vascular organ. It is richly supplied by the branches of the external carotid artery and subclavian artery. There are two major arteries which are supplying the gland. From the external carotid artery, it is the superior thyroid artery, and from the subclavian artery, there is an inferior thyroid branch. And third artery which may sometime be present in the for the thyroid gland is the thyroidema artery. First, we will study the superior thyroid artery. Superior thyroid artery is the first branch from the external carotid artery, and after taking origin from the external carotid artery, the artery will descend towards the apex of the gland. Here it will divide into an anterior and posterior branch. The anterior branch will run along the anterior border, and near the upper border of the isthmus, it will anastomose with the anterior branch of the opposite side. While the posterior branch of the artery, it will run along the posterior border to anastomose with the branches of the inferior thyroid artery. The superior thyroid artery, it will supply upper one-third of the lateral lobe and upper half of the isthmus. The second artery which is supplying the gland is the inferior thyroid artery, which is a branch from the thyrocervical trunk from first part of subclavian artery. The inferior thyroid artery, after its origin from thyrocervical trunk, will run posterior to the carotid sheath and will reach the base of the gland. Near the base of the gland, it will give up the glandular branches, ascending and inferior branches, which will run along the posterior border of the gland and will anastomose with the branches of superior thyroid artery. The inferior thyroid artery, it will supply the lower two-thirds of the lateral lobes and lower half of the isthmus of the gland. Inferior thyroid arteries, they will also supply the parathyroid gland. And if we see in this diagram, both the superior and inferior thyroid artery, they are closely related to the branches of the vagus nerve, and these relations, they become important during the thyroidectomy. The superior thyroid artery, near its origin, it is closely related to the external laryngeal branch of the vagus nerve. And if we trace both the structures towards the apex of the gland, both the structures, they are quite distant from each other. That means during the thyroidectomy, when we will ligate the artery, we should ligate the superior thyroid artery near to the apex of the gland. As if we try to ligate it near its origin, we may damage the external laryngeal branch of the vagus nerve, and this external laryngeal branch, it supplies the cricothyroid muscle of the larynx, which is the tensor of the vocal cord. So always remember, ligate the superior thyroid artery near to the gland to avoid damage to external laryngeal branch of vagus nerve. Now, if we see the relations of the inferior thyroid artery, it is closely related to the recurrent laryngeal branch of the vagus nerve near the base of the gland. So, we will always ligate the inferior thyroid artery away from the gland to avoid damage to the recurrent laryngeal branch of the vagus nerve. And if we try to ligate it near to the gland, we may cause injury to the recurrent laryngeal nerve, which supplies all the muscles of the larynx except cricothyroid. So always remember, ligate the inferior thyroid artery away from the gland. So these two facts must be remembered during the thyroidectomy, that is the ligate superior thyroid artery near the gland and ligate the inferior thyroid artery away from the gland to avoid injuries to the branches of the vagus nerve. The third artery, which may be sometime present in 3% of individual, is the thyroidema artery, which may arise from the brachiocephalic trunk or from the arch of the aorta. This artery will reach up to the lower border of the isthmus of the gland, and this artery must be looked for during the surgeries, because if present, and it may cause severe hemorrhage if it is injured during the surgery. So that is about the arterial supply of the gland and its applied importance. Now the venous drainage of the gland is by three sets of veins: superior thyroid veins, middle thyroid veins, and the inferior thyroid veins. The upper two sets, that are the superior and the middle thyroid veins, they drain into the internal jugular vein, while the third veins, the inferior thyroid veins, they may form a plexus over the lower border of isthmus, and they will drain mainly into the left brachiocephalic vein. Sometimes a fourth set of veins may be present, and these are named as the Cocker's veins. They must be carefully looked for during the surgeries, because if present and if damaged, they can also be a source of bleeding at the time of surgeries. So that is about the blood supply of the thyroid gland, arterial and the venous drainage. Now the lymphatic drainage of the gland is by the prelaryngeal groups, pretracheal groups, and paratracheal group of lymph nodes. All of them will drain into the deep cervical group of lymph nodes. The nerve supply of the gland is supplied by the autonomic nerves. Sympathetic nerves will reach by the middle cervical ganglia, and they are mostly vasoconstrictor, while the parasympathetic nerves, they will reach by the cardiac and laryngeal branches of the vagus nerve. But always remember, the secretions of the gland, they are never controlled by the autonomic nerves. The secretions, they are always controlled by the thyroid stimulating hormone from the anterior pituitary. So that is about the gross anatomy of the thyroid gland and its relation. Now we will study the applied anatomy.